Another day is here, and you're ready for it. What to wear? Check. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Check. Planning for what's next and how to save for it? That's where Bank of America can help. For your financial to-dos, Bank of America has experts ready to help get you closer to your goals. Get started at one of our local financial centers or 24/7 in our mobile banking app. Find a location near you at bankofamerica.com/talktous. What would you like the power to do? Mobile banking requires downloading the app and is only available for select devices. Message and data rates may apply. Bank of America N.A., member FDIC.
There's a lot that could impress you about the all-new Honda Prologue EV. True, it's got class-leading passenger space and clean, thoughtful design and intuitive technology. But what really sets the Prologue apart from the competition is that it's more than an EV. It's a Honda. Honda, the power of dreams. Visit honda.com/prologue to learn more.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our Quick Publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello, welcome to the Daily Red, your early afternoon catch-up on all things Liverpool FC on a Friday where there's absolutely nothing going on. In fact, the most Liverpool-related news taking place today is that Tottenham are in talks over a potential move for Dominic Solanke, which would concern Liverpool because Liverpool have a sell-on clause in Solanke's contract at Bournemouth. Now, that is the height of it. That is literally what's going on. Other than that, there are journalists giving updates that don't tell us anything we didn't know 2 months ago. There's aggregator sites taking bits of what journalists said and tried to make them into, interaction farms on social media. But there really isn't anything taking place. I mean, Lewis, what's his name? I can't think. The new journalist at the Mail, he was asked a question about Gordon. He said, well, it's not dead in the water. And that then went round, it's not dead in the water, Liverpool might still make a move. But it ignored the context of why he said that because he was asked a question. The same thing with James Pearce, who said it was fascinating, but didn't give any information, didn't suggest the move was likely or in the works, and said that in response to a question on a podcast. But again, that context gets removed and just the, oh, well, it's fascinating, gets aggregated and people lap it up. And therefore, I do think people who maybe are a bit too caught up in the social media side of things are of the opinion that a lot more is going on. But the only actual reporting we've had from a Liverpool journalist about Anthony Gordon was Chris Bascombe saying Liverpool have had no contact with regards to this deal since June. Today we have a report from George Calkin, who is the best around for Newcastle, that Newcastle intend to offer him a new contract. Now, as I've said before, most of the noise does seem to be coming from his agent. But his agent is likely leveraging the fact that Newcastle did offer him to us to get him that new deal, because Newcastle will offer him more money than we will. So the agent stands to profit from that. Now, he'd also make money moving to Liverpool, but still, I think he would profit more, especially in the longer term, by being involved with the PIF than he would with us, where we pay much lower wages. So the agent is clearly doing a lot of the talking, a lot of the footwork. Everything that's come out of Newcastle, from Eddie Howe, from their CEO, is that they're not selling him. He's not available. They looked at a potential solution to their PSR, but that they had preference on selling Minta and or Anderson, and as it turned out, they sold both of them instead of Gordon. And as I said before, I do think they could easily sell it to Gordon of, look, we didn't want to sell you. We were in a situation where the Premier League were forcing us into sales we didn't want to make. And we tried to do you a solid by getting you to the club that we knew you would like to play for, but we have no intention of selling you. You are under contract here, and we want to reward you with a longer contract with more money. Again, a lot of people sort of jumping on the, he's only got 2 years left in his current deal situation, but there's no evidence that he only has 2 years left in his current deal. There's absolutely no reporting that he only has 2 years left on his current deal. Everything when he signed was long-term contract. George Calkin in today's piece on The Athletic said long-term contract, which means if even he doesn't know, there's zero chance Transfer Market knows when his contract is up. Zero chance. And I went back and I looked at all the big money Newcastle signings from when the PIF came in. So Guimaraes, Tonali, Isak, Botman, Livramento, Hull. Who else did I look at? There's one other. Tonali. Oh, and Harvey Barnes. And Guimaraes signed a 4.5-year deal and then was given a new contract quite quickly. Everyone else, it was 5.5, 6. Nobody else got Guimaraes' 4.5 years, and other than Kieran Trippier, but I'm not counting players that were signed on the cheap. I'm talking about big money investments. All of them got long-term deals, and the one that got a 4.5-year deal, which is still long-term, got a new contract quite quickly. So I just don't see that they'd have given him 3.5 years, particularly since he was desperate to leave Everton and wanted to go to Newcastle. And Newcastle was his preference. And I don't see Newcastle not having the upper hand there to tie him into a longer contract. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if he's got 4 years left on his deal, if he signed a 5.5-year contract when he went there. Like, Isak was 6 years. And I know they spent more money on him than they spent on Gordon, but I do feel like in the situation, Newcastle probably pushed for a lot longer than 3.5. I'd imagine they pushed for 5.5. Whether they got it or not, I don't know. But at the very minimum, I would say it's 4.5, which would mean he has 3 years left. So they have no real reason to sell. And they're not in a situation like Everton. Like, they're not going to be held hostage by Gordon. And I don't think Gordon is going to try and force his way out. I really don't. I think if he was going to ask to go, he would have done so already. But this is not like when he was leaving Everton. This is not a situation where there's people walking up to him in the street and giving him abuse the way there was when he was at Everton. This is not a situation where his family are out doing their day-to-day things and people are giving them abuse. Those were the reasons Anthony Gordon wanted to leave Everton. And the thing is, if he was to join Liverpool, I think his family would be in for an awful amount of abuse from Blues, who wouldn't take well to it at all. I think Gordon will sign a new contract at Newcastle. Now, look, it may change, but for right now, what we know is that Liverpool are not planning for any of their attackers to leave, have significant needs in defensive midfield and defence and are unlikely to have 80, 90 million on top of that sitting around to go and bring in Anthony Gordon, who doesn't fit how this manager wants to play. As I said before, if we are going to spend big on an attacker, the one to go for, and you might not get him, but the one to go for is Julian Alvarez. He's the one that makes all the sense, especially in how this team is being set up to play. Salah right, Alvarez off Darwin, Szoboszlai left, tucking in, forming a midfield three, roaming in to form two number 10s, and also able to hold width when that's what's called for, just makes so much sense for us. That front four works. And then if Salah does leave next summer, Mohamed Kudus has a release clause. We know the nerds love Kudus. He was the one they wanted to bring in when we signed Cody. So it wouldn't surprise me if they've got an eye on him for next summer. Now, he's not going to replicate Salah's goal numbers, but I do think he's got the potential to get a lot of goals. And if we could get Alvarez, which is, again, unlikely, but you just don't know. City don't seem to have any hesitation in selling a player to a rival. Like, they sold Sterling to Chelsea. They sold Jesus and Zinchenko to Arsenal. I'm not sure they'd be all that bothered about selling Alvarez to us. They were willing to sell Sterling back to us a couple of years ago. So, I don't know. I just think that works really well. Kudus right, Alvarez off Darwin, Dominic on the left. Long term. Now, obviously, the preference would be to keep Mo. Ideally, you just keep Mo, and then maybe you buy someone in that 19-20 age bracket to develop behind him, which is why Yankuba Minta would have been ideal. And I think if we'd had clarity on Mo's future, it's probably Minta we would have gone for. But since we don't, and we can't be certain that in 12 months, a 20-year-old is going to be ready to replace one of the best players on the planet, I think that's why we held off. I think next summer, if Minta explodes in the Premier League, next summer you could probably get him for a similar fee to what West Ham have in Kudus' contract, which is around the 80-85 million mark. That would be a 50 million profit for Brighton. I think you'd probably get him off one season for that, but would we be willing to pay it off one season? I think we'd be willing to do it for Kudus because we've got multiple seasons of data. Now, Minta does have the year with Arne at Feyenoord, and maybe that becomes a factor as well. But I think next summer is when we'll sign a wide player. This summer, I mean, Osario wouldn't shock me because he has been linked. He does fit the bill with his 1v1 ability. And I think he'd be pretty cheap. Let's see what his contract situation is. Dario Osario, Midtjylland, The transfer market of his value at 7 million, but you wouldn't put too much into that. According to this, his contract runs till 2028. So he's got 4 years on it. I would say somewhere in the 15 to 18 million range probably would get him this summer. And I think if we're going to buy a winger this summer, it's more likely to be someone like him because of the cost. Like, that's a cheap deal. So if Diaz left, I'd rather go for him and Alvarez and line it up with Mo and Osario right, Alvarez and Elliott 10, Darwin Jota 9, Szoboszlai Gakpo left. And then in midfield, you have Alexis and Jones for one position, new defensive midfielder and Endo for the other position. Besetic is the fifth midfielder. That, as a midfield and attack, is really good. Really, really good. And we know we're set at right back. We're strong at centre back right now. We need a left back. Sell Costas or Robbo, bring in that left back, and you're good in defence. And then goalkeeper, unless Kelleher leaves, we don't need to do anything. We're in great shape with the goalkeepers. Yaros looks a really good prospect. We know what Kelleher's about, and Ali's the best in the world. The likelihood is, I think, that Diaz stays. We don't buy an attacker, and we look at it next summer, but we'll see. On the topic of Joe Gomez, though, I do wonder if another bit of transfer news that's come out today might have a knock-on effect. David Ornstein reporting that Newcastle have opened talks with Crystal Palace over Mark Guehi. Now, it did look like Newcastle were closing in on Malik Thiaw of AC Milan, the young German centre-back. But it seems that one's gotten a bit murky and maybe there's a gap in price. But Guehi would cost twice what Milan are looking for Thiaw. I think Guehi's the better defender, but he's also primarily played left side when he's playing in the back four. His experience on the right is limited to maybe a handful of games early in his career at Swansea and some youth games. He has played middle of a back three, but he has primarily played on the left of a two-man centre-back pairing. At Toon, he would have to play on the right when Botman comes back. I think he could do it. I think he'd do it quite easily. But Thiaw's a more natural fit. Like, he just slots in there and it's, cheaper deal to do. But the knock-on on this, despite certain people trying to claim that, if they're going to buy him, they'll have to sell Gordon. Do you not understand how finances work in football? How amortization works? Newcastle signing Guehi for 60 million is 12 million a year on their books. They don't need to sell anybody to afford that. And if they did, they could just sell, I don't know, Jacob Murphy or somebody. But the knock-on effect could be Crystal Palace looking for a new centre-back. And could Joe Gomez be the target there? I think financially, the price of Gomez would work for Palace. I think we'd be willing to do business at around 30 to 35 million. I think the 45 that Newcastle were offering was too good to turn down. I think we would take 30, 35 if Joe wanted to go. No suggestion that he would want to go to Palace, but there is suggestion that he wants to move on, that he'd like to go back to London. And it would make sense for him. He's from South London. It would make sense for him to go to Palace. He's friends with Eze as well. And potentially that makes sense. The issue could be that Joe's wages might be more than Palace are willing to pay. But I'm fairly certain they gave Eze a pretty big contract on his last extension. So they might be willing to push the boat a little bit for Gomez. And a Gomez, Anderson, Chadi, Riyad back three for them would be really strong. That would then leave us needing to bring in a centre-back as well as the left-back and defensive midfielder. And I really do think the more I sort of look at different options, we obviously passed on Yarrow. We passed on Huysen, which suggests we're not looking to move anybody on. But again, if an offer came in for Joe and he wanted to go, I think we would take it. I think Amenda from Eintracht Frankfurt will be the one to go and get. 21 years of age, big, tall, big as in built, tall, dominant in the air, quick, good on the ball, good 1v1, 21-year-old Swiss underage international with a big, big future. I think he would be a really good get for us. If we had Ibu, Virgil, Quansah, Sepp and him, I think you'd be really happy with your centre-back options. And then in 12 months, you could sell Sepp, because by then Marinello might be able to step up. He might be ready to step up into the first team. Looked pretty composed. Did give the ball away cheaply a couple of times, but he was brave with his passing. Looked willing to play those forward passes. So, yeah, I mean, that could all fit together very, very well. There's 29 days left after today. Defensive midfield and left back have to get sorted. They're the two needs. We sort them and don't do anything else, and I really do think we'll be in with a crack at the league. Now, it's an outside crack, but City are not the same monster they were from 2017 to 2019.
This episode is brought to you by Experian. Are you paying for subscriptions you don't use but can't find the time or energy to cancel them? Experian could cancel unwanted subscriptions for you, saving you an average of $270 per year and plenty of time. Download the Experian app. Results will vary. Not all subscriptions are eligible. Savings are not guaranteed. Paid membership with connected payment account required.
Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/save. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
And they've won 4 titles in a row. Eventually that will start to wear them down. When you look at the squad, there's quite a few older players. Well, there's 2 older players starting for them regularly who are showing significant signs of wear and tear. One being Kyle Walker, who's declined significantly. And the other is KDB, who's had multiple significant injuries over the last few years. He's still a genius. He's still a footballing genius, but the fact of it is, like, he's no longer in his early to mid-20s. He's now 33. And injuries are going to become a little bit more frequent and going to take longer to get back from. When he plays, he's incredible, but he is playing, less. Last season in the Premier League, 18 games. He hasn't played. Like, if you look at his time at City, right, the first season, he played 41 games, 25 in the league, 41 in all competitions. Then he played 49, 36 in the league, 52, 37 in the league. Then he had an injury-plagued 18, 19, 32 games, 19 in the league. Bounces back next year, 48 games, 35 in the league. But then it's 40 games, 25 in the league, 44, 30 in the league, 49, but only 32 in the league. So he's missed 20 last year, 6 the year before, 8 the year before that. That's 34 and 13. He's missed 47 league games over the last 4 years. Now, some of that is rest, obviously, but it is a fact that he's picking up more and more injuries. And it is a fact that he can't play every single week. And he's still their most important player. He's still their best player by, I think, a considerable margin. Not a surprise. Our 2 best players are well into the 30s as well in Virgil and Mo. But you look at this and, like, the injuries are just stacking up. Even if they're just small injuries. Groin strain, hamstring injury, foot bruise, ankle injury, facial fracture, fracture of the eye socket, muscular problems, hamstring injury, muscle injury. That's just since the start of 2021. That's a lot of injuries in 4 seasons. You know? So they're not the same monster they were. They don't have, I don't think, like as good as Bernardo is, he's not as good as David Silva. As good as Phil Foden is, I would rather have Leroy Sané circa 2017 to 2019. As good as Doku might be, give me Raheem Sterling circa 2017, 2019 all day. Rodri's an upgrade on Fernandinho, but he's a different type of defensive midfielder. He's not as dynamic. And he doesn't allow you the freedom that Fernandinho did. When they had Fernandinho there, you'd watch them play with KDB, Fernandinho, Silva, Sterling, Aguero, and Sané, and in a 4-3-3 that would just shift into a 4-4-2 with KDB going right, Sané coming left wing, and Sterling going central next to Aguero, Fernandinho and Silva as the double pivot, and then Silva would step forward a little bit, basically play behind the striker, and you'd end up with a back four, Fernandinho, 3 attacking players, and then 2 strikers. And because of Fernandinho's ability to cover huge amounts of ground, they could get away with that quite easily. And that was with Walker and, unfortunately, Benjamin Mendy or whoever it was, bombing forward from fullback. But Fernandinho could cover so much ground it made up for it. They can't play like that anymore. They're not as aggressive like that anymore. Their fullbacks now are glorified centre-backs, as Walker has become. Gvardiol is a centre-back. As good as Ruben Diaz can be, he's not Vincent Kompany. I think Aki's become their best centre-back in the last 12 months. The goalkeeper's definitely slipped a bit as well. They're not as mobile in midfield. And I don't think they're as potent as an attacking unit. As good as the players they have are, KDB is not as good as he was. Bernardo's not as good as Silva. I don't think Foden's as good as Sané was. He's a better player now than Sané, but I don't think he's as good as Sané was. And Sterling back then was a lot better than Doku. You could argue, obviously, that Haaland being better than Aguero improves them, but is he better than Aguero? As a goal scorer, maybe. Not definitely, though. Maybe. As a footballer, he's nowhere close. So they're not the same threat. Arsenal are the only other team that has a shot at winning the league. And like when push comes to shove, they've fallen short every time. Every single time Arsenal have been in a pressure situation, they folded. 3 years ago, well, last season, season before that. So yeah, 3 seasons ago, they were nailed on for top 4. Spurs put pressure on them, they folded. Season after, they were pretty clear favourites to win the league with 10 games left. City put pressure on, bottled it. Last season, I think City were the favourites. But when push came to shove in the biggest game, Arsenal went to the Etihad and parked the bus. And they parked the bus. That's what they did. They'd worked themselves back into a position. Like, go back to the turn of the year. They looked like the team that were going to win the league. Then they had this really poor run. Then they turned it around once the pressure was lifted off them, had a really good run, went to the Etihad knowing, win this and we win the league. And they parked the bus and just handed the title back to City. And City were never going to drop it from there. Arsenal don't play well as favourites. They don't deal well with pressure. You've got a squad of players there that haven't won anything at that club. Like, Arsenal's only success under Arteta is obviously the FA Cup, which was pretty much entirely Unai Emery's team. And if we take a look at the Arsenal squad, which, remember as well, They beat Frank Lampard's Chelsea. And their run to the final was absolute piss. Leeds, Bournemouth, Portsmouth, Sheffield United. They did beat City in the semi-final, to be fair to them, but 4 very, very easy games before that. You get to the final, you look at that squad. Martinez, gone. Holding, gone. Louise, gone. Tierney's still there, but they're trying to sell him. Bellerin is gone. Ceballos is gone. Xhaka is gone. Maitland-Niles is gone. Pepe's gone. Lacazette's gone. Aubameyang's gone. Of the bench unit, Matt Macy's gone. Socrates is gone. Kolasinac is gone. Torreira is gone. Willock is gone. I've no idea who Matt Smith is. He plays for Wigan now. Bukayo Saka is still there. Reece Nelson is still there. They're trying to sell him. And Eddie Nketiah is still there. They're trying to sell him. So the only player from that team with the future at Arsenal, and that final was only 4 years ago, is Bukayo Saka, who didn't play in the final. He played twice in that entire FA Cup run. So he's the only one with a winner's medal from being an Arsenal player who's currently an Arsenal. And he didn't contribute in the final to them actually winning that medal. And you look through the squad, Ramsdale's won nothing. Saliba, I think, won a cup in France with Marseille. No, he didn't. He lost a cup final with St. Etienne. So he's won nothing. He lost a World Cup final as well while sitting on the bench. So he's won nothing. Ben White, he got promoted while at Leeds, but I'm not sure we're classing that as counting for much. He did win the championship with Leeds. So you only count that. Fair play to you. Gabriel, he won a couple of medals in Croatia, playing for Dinamo Zagreb. And by couple, I mean 2. And by the looks of things, he didn't contribute to winning those either. They've brought in Calafiori to be their new left back. He's won nothing. Other defensive options, Tomiyasu. He's won an Asian under-19 championship with Japan. Jurien Timber, I mean, he won a few Dutch titles, but I mean, do they count for anything, really? He played for Ajax. Of course you're going to win something. But yeah, he won a couple of titles, but with Ajax, not with Arsenal. So none of the defensive options are really bringing a track record of winning anything. Jakub Kivor, he's there as well. He's another defensive option. He has won nothing. Zinchenko won a bunch of medals with City. Everybody wins medals with City. He's not somebody you would have said was ever truly vital for City. A player they couldn't live without, which is why they were willing to sell him. In midfield, you've got Jorginho. Now, he's obviously won a lot in his career. He's won a Coppa Italia, he's won a Champions League, a Europa League, a World Club Cup, and he's won the European Championships with Italy. But he's won nothing at Arsenal. Declan Rice won the Europa Conference League, which is obviously impressive that West Ham won it, but it's not something that you really want to win as a top-level player. You don't ever think you're going to play in that competition as a top-level player. But again, he's won nothing with Arsenal. Thomas Partey, he won a bunch of stuff with Atletico Madrid, a La Liga title and a Europa League title. But in truth, he wasn't there when they won the Europa League, or the league title. He left 3 games into the season. I don't even think they gave him a medal. So he won the Europa League in 17-18 with Atleti. Fair play to him. Martin Odegaard has won nothing in his entire career outside of a Copa del Rey at Real Sociedad, where it was the 1920 season that he was there on loan. They got to the final. COVID happened. The final got delayed, and he had left nearly a year before that final was played. So he didn't actually take part in the winning of that final. Fabio Vieira, he might have some medals from his time at Porto. He does indeed, a couple of league titles, but again, nothing with Arsenal. Kai Havertz has won a Champions League. He's won nothing with Arsenal. Gabriel Jesus won his pots and pans at City. Nothing with Arsenal. Gabriel Martinelli, he was at the club in the 1920 season when they won the FA Cup, but wasn't involved in the final. David Raya, forgot about him. He did win the playoff championship with Brentford, and he was in the Spain squad and did play once in the Spain squad that won the Euros. But again, nothing with Arsenal. There's not winners there. There's nobody that you're looking at there, with the one exception being Declan Rice in that Europa Conference League run for West Ham. There's nobody you're looking there that has medals to the name. And maybe Partey in that Europa League run for Atleti, potentially. That's 6 years ago. You're not looking at anything and thinking, well, without them, they wouldn't have won that. Without that one player, they wouldn't have won it. All of Jorginho's medals, he did play a vital role, but you could easily see him being replaced by somebody else and his team still winning. Not so much with Rice and West Ham, because who would they get that'd be better than Rice? And Partey, when he was at Atleti back in 17-18, was excellent. So that's it. But that's it. This is not a squad of winners. Just isn't. And Arteta himself won a couple of FA Cups, I believe, with Arsenal. But, you know, that's pretty much it. He won a league title with Rangers. To only have that for his career is quite a small haul for such a long career. But he did play for Everton for a long time, so it explains it. But this isn't a squad of winners. And there's no proof that when push comes to shove, that they can get over the line. They should be able to. They spent enough money to. But for now, not so much. Tyler Morton has said, if you don't love Slot's style of football, you shouldn't be a footballer. There has been some suggestion that Lewis Steele is the Mail's reporter that I couldn't think of, that we want to sell Owen Beck rather than loan him, which I think makes sense. So I'd expect that he moves on this summer. Miguel Delaney said the next 10 days are likely to see the first concrete bids put in by Liverpool. The belief around the Liverpool campus, the transfer business will finally accelerate next week. Now, again, I'm not sure how much insight Miguel Delaney has. If Liverpool patch journalists don't, I'm not sure how much he has. But he says a centre-back, a defensive midfielder, and a wide forward. And then he says there could be two of the latter. There's zero chance for signing two wide forwards. He's literally just said what we knew 2 months ago, what Ornstein said 2 months ago. But that was all based on the idea that somebody might leave. Delaney has named Willian Pacho as a centre-back target, which again leads me to believe that this is not insightful. This is guesswork based on what was said previously. Because Pacho was linked 6 weeks ago. Now, I do think he'd be a really good signing. And you could let Gomez go, sign him, and just have him come in. Because unlike with Hincapié and Lukeba and Inacio and others, he could be a centre-back for us. he genuinely could play centre-back for us. Now, he needs to improve in the air, but he is big enough and strong enough at 6'2" and a decent build to improve in that regard. So he would make sense. He could start left-back for us, play that in that kind of back three. He could also play if Virgil misses games. So he would make sense. But again, I don't think that's anything that's actually sourced information. I think that's more an educated guess on Delaney's behalf. I've rambled for a long time. I'm just going to go to AnfieldIndex.com and let you know what's new from the boys and girls who do very good work. Journalist, Liverpool star could refuse to leave club despite 12 million offers. That is Wataru Endo. Some suggestion that he does not want to leave the club. He wants to stay and fight for his chance. And I think that's fair enough. Endo remains adamant about staying. Good for him. If he wants to stay, good for him. We gave him a contract. That's how it has to be. A very busy August. I think it will be very busy, but I think it'll be a couple of incomings, a good few outgoings, and fingers crossed, contracts. It's a piece about Delaney suggesting we could sign 4. I just don't see any world in which we sign 4 players. I think 3 would be the max, but I think 2 is most likely. Tyler Morton talking about slot style of football is fantastic. Brundish putting the cat amongst the pigeons with some comments, as is his way. Trent's new physique has made him more resilient in duels, but also suggests a shift towards a more dynamic role. We'll see. We'll see what happens with Trent when he gets back. Finally then, podcast-wise, there is a new scouted on the Betis game and Anthony Gordon. We've also got another scouted, which I think is coming out today, which will look at the Arsenal game and a few other recent transfers. There is the Anfield Index podcast with Trev and Simon, so you can hear what Simon had to say. And there is a few more things to come. I know there is another Anfield Index podcast being recorded, I believe, tonight. Let's see what we can find. Harry Sethi is working on a series of rival recons for Big Six rivals, so they'll start to drop as well. And Dave Davis will be here over the weekend, I believe, to do the Daily Red. And I'll be back on Wednesday, actually, because Monday's a bank holiday. Tuesday, I have an appointment that I can't miss. And Wednesday, I'll be back. So I will speak to you all on Wednesday. So now you get to just cleanse your ears of my horrible voice. Downey might even fill in for one. We'll see what happens. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.
Sports Social Podcast Network.